Oh, I definitely did things wrong. The number one thing I did wrong was to marry him, even though I saw a lot of red flags in advance. But I neglected to acknowledge just how valid my own sense my own instincts were. And I'm about to explain exactly why, just in case anyone else is in the beginning of a relationship or considering a relationship and they're not sure if it's the right one for them. I also just want to say that I did come to our marriage with a lot more relational skills. I grew up in an incredibly rich relational environment. We live in a whole culture and a whole society that values like productivity and consumption, and we are so quickly losing relational skills as a foundation. And that's happening everywhere, but I think it can be felt most acutely often in heterosexual relationships because women are often continuing to practice relational skills and building social fabric, and men are often neglecting to do that. Okay, back to my marriage. Before I got married, I recognized at a very acute level just how different my partner and I were, and it worried me. And I actually brought up those worries a good deal. Quite a few of the things that we were different on, I didn't want to compromise. I wouldn't want to live a whole life where I was compromising on certain things. And to the best of my ability, we got married when we were 21. We were just such little babies. We had such poor communication skills, both of us did. But the degree to which I knew how to communicate those things, I tried. And one of the big mistakes I made was I assumed when I brought up those conversations that he was taking them seriously. And that assumption was dead wrong. And my capacity for assuming will become a big problem, as we're about to see. Well, I recognized that he and I had many significant differences. We had some pretty key foundational things in common. And my experience in relationships up to that point was that two people don't actually have to be perfect. I wasn't coming to marriage thinking that my partner would satisfy every single one of my wants and needs for my whole life. That sounded insane. On the other hand, I believed that there are significant relationships in your life, without a doubt, but that truly, as a human being, like my whole relational platter, which meant like my whole community, was going to nourish me relationally on the whole. I wasn't going to get all my wants and needs met by one person. That seemed insane and narcissistic and stupid. So I assumed, once again, my assumptions, this is where I went wrong. I assumed we'd have a healthy enough community around us to sustain us and to feed well, in this case, to feed me. I knew certain things he lacked did not feed me, but I wasn't going to have to look for him for that because I assumed there'd be a healthy enough community and society around us. I was dead wrong. I had not fully considered the degree to which society has broken down, communal bonds and social fabric have broken down even from when I was a child. I'm 41, so I grew up in the 80s and the 90s. Part of what sustained my family of origin growing up was I went to my grandmother's on the weekend. I had aunts and uncles and cousins all the time. I went on vacation with my aunts and uncles. I had an incredible church family. I felt like I was raised by a community, honestly. I remember being in my high school and a friend of mine was like, "Oh, I feel so lonely. If my dad dies, I have no one else." And I felt the complete opposite. I'm like, you would have to shoot 1,000 people for me to feel alone. That's how loved I felt by my community. And we went on to have kids. My grandparents, who watched me as a child, could both retire at the age of 60 after working like no college education, no formal training, just got jobs right out of high school working for a telephone company. On my dad's side of the family, neither one of them were trained workers either. They just had low wage jobs, but were able to retire by 60 and then be a part of weaving the social fabric of the next generation of their family. When we had kids, my husband and I, neither one of our parents could retire until their mid 60s or almost 70. So they weren't around to be a part of our healthy community to help raise our kids because they were still working full time. Once again, I did not account for just how people's own desperation to just meet their basic needs is keeping people from actually like keeping strong bonds of family and community. Knowing what I know now, I actually wouldn't get married and I wouldn't have kids. I would never do a heterosexual marriage again for sure. And kids are incredible. And I feel really sad that we've created a world that it's nearly impossible. I for sure did not have the inner or outer resources to raise children in our current state of like wild individualism and really poor support structures for families, both public and private. I failed to adequately assess the way our value differences would impact us. And I believe this lack of social fabric, like I think individuals and marriages are all supported by like the general community, how healthy the community is. And I picture almost like a trampoline. It's what we all bounce on or rest on in our hard times or when we go through things. Because humans are messy, they're so imperfect. And I knew that going into marriage, but I thought we'd have this like cushion to land on of a healthy community. And that like trampoline, if healthy community is a trampoline, it is now currently in the United States of America just riddled with holes. Some of us might bounce off of it, but others just fall through the cracks. We are not doing well. We are breaking down. And that is a large part of the reason why marriages are breaking down as well. I fell victim to that. I did not understand the degree to which my own conception of relying on healthy community would not be available, and how, as a result, I should not have picked my current partner to be my husband. Lastly, the biggest mistake I made was I'd grown up in super conservative Christian culture and had really internalized the idea of like traditional gender roles. And even though I had no natural skill set in that direction, for some reason I thought there was like a right way to do things, and began my marriage from that place without really having questioned it and really have evaluated, is this what works well for us? Spoiler alert, it's not what works well for us. We could have saved ourselves so much time and pain and strain and damage to our marriage had we just started life with a blank slate rather than thinking we had to follow some traditional path. So I did that wrong as well.